Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winnebago County Board meeting. Tonight is Thursday, February 27th, 2025. Tonight, our invocation and pledge allegiance will be by Board Member Dave Tassoni. Please stand.
Dear Lord, we thank you for another opportunity to spend here on this great earth that you've created. Dear Lord, we'll always be thankful and grateful for the servicemen and women that protect our freedoms and keep us safe. We ask that you watch over them. And we ask that our faith in you helps us become better than we were yesterday. And on this 27th day of February, I'd like to ask for a special blessing from my mother celebrating her 82nd birthday. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Tassoni. Did you say it was your mother's 87th? 82nd. Wish her a happy birthday. Okay, Mr. Thompson, the Administrator Thompson, is there any agenda announcements?
No agenda announcements. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. Clerk Hummel, can you please call the roll?
Certainly. Thank you, Chairman. We will start with Mr. Neighbors. Here. Mr. Penny.
Here.
Mr. Salgado. Present. Mr. Scroll. Here. Mr. Sweeney. Here. Mr. Tassoni. Present. Mr. Michael Thompson.
Present.
Mr. Ray Thompson.
Present.
Ms. Valdez. Present. Mr. Webster. Here. Mr. Arena. Here. Mr. Booker. Mr. Butita. Here. Ms. Fellers. Present. Mrs. Gorel. Present. Ms. Hansert. Mr. Hoffman. Present. Mr. Lindmark. Present. Mr. McCarthy. Present. Mr. McDonald. Present. Thank you all. Chairman, 18 board members present, 2 board members absent.
Very good, thank you. We do have a quorum. I'm going to read a statement for the public participation because I believe we have 3 speakers tonight. So comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers may not address zoning matters which are pending before the ZBA, zoning committee, or the county board. Personnel matters or pending or threatened litigation may not be addressed in open session. An individual may speak a maximum of 3 times per calendar year on the same topic. This prohibition shall include the repetition of the same topic in a statement on what is purported to be a different topic. Personal attacks or inappropriate language of any sort will not be tolerated. Our first speaker is Beth Osmond. Is Beth here? No, not Beth. We'll move on then. Next speaker is Stephanie Hicks. If you want to come forward, please.
Do you tell me when, or do I
Go, you start.
Okay. I forget. So Stephanie Hicks with Care for Pets. I think I know half of you here. I just wanted to speak quickly about our origins. I don't know that many of you know, and I'm going to have to do this in episodes, so please bear with me because it would take longer than 3 minutes. But I do want to introduce what we're doing, where we came from, what we're doing, and why that's important to you for the county. I know some of you have received phone calls from me and are maybe like, why are you calling me? What do you have to do with anything? Care for Pets actually started back in 2014. It was a brainchild of past county administrator Dave Peterson. I was not involved at that time. It was named by Dave Peterson. It was started as a campaign for capital improvements to raise funds to build a bigger shelter, to do capital improvements, basically. Around that time, I believe that there was a donation of $250,000 from someone who had passed away that was very passionate about animal services. And my understanding when I did get involved in the building this nonprofit was to move that money over and maybe bypassing the board and how to utilize that money. The county actually paid for Care for Pets website. Once I joined and Dave Peterson was no longer around, I got called in by Frank Haney to pay money back out of an account that had $0 in it. So this whole organization really was started by past county administration for the sole purpose of serving animal services. Dave and Scott Christensen obviously left their positions. We don't need to get into why, but I think you all know, most of you know. Dave was still involved even after leaving his position, but the organization changed because my background is social services. I was recruited in 2017 to be on the board along with a few other people, and the mindset was, why are we building a bigger jail? Basically, we want to try and, like, you don't want to build a bigger jail. We want to keep the animals out of the building versus you can't just keep building bigger and bigger. That's not helpful. At that time, they were euthanizing over 200, Jennifer could correct me if I'm wrong, over 200 animals a month. So also, how are we going to raise money to build a bigger shelter, $3 million, with a shelter that was euthanizing over 200 animals a month that basically the whole community did not appreciate? So the organization shifted in its initiatives in order to provide support to animal services versus building a bigger building. So that is the first part. I did good with my time. I didn't practice. I appreciate your time, and I'll come back, not next time, but the time after that, and explain a little bit more. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Mitchell. If you want to come forward.
Good evening. As the chairman said, my name is John Mitchell, and I have the pleasure to come to you tonight representing Winnebago Boone Farm Bureau as its board president. We bring greetings to you and appreciate your consideration this evening of a pro-agriculture resolution for Winnebago County. At the Winnebago Boone Farm Bureau, to give you a little background about us, we represent about 1,100 farmer members and over 6,000 associate members in Winnebago and Boone counties. Our mission is to be the voice, resource, and advocate for farm families and agriculture while promoting stewardship for today and future generations. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a flavor of what we do for our members in Winnebago and Boone counties. But agriculture in Winnebago County accounts for almost 700 farms, representing over 167,000 acres. So it's a very large part of the county here, supporting over 6,000 jobs and an estimated sales output of $170 million to the county. So we appreciate your support of agriculture over the years, and we look forward to working with you in the future. If you guys got a chance to look at the plaque that we presented a little bit earlier, that signifies Winnebago County and Winnebago Boone Farm Bureau as being allies in agriculture. And so, we appreciate your continued support.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Okay, that concludes our public participation. We'll move on to the approval of minutes. May I entertain a motion to approve January 23rd, 2025, and lay over February 13th, 2025 minutes. Mr. Salgado motions to approve, and Mr. Thompson in the back there, Mr. Michael Thompson, seconds that motion. Is there any discussion on the minutes, either approving or laying over the minutes? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed? Very good. Please cast yes for all members present. Next is the consent agenda that includes the raffle report and the auditor's report. May I entertain a motion, please? Motion by Mr. Salgado, second by Ms. Gorel. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda, raffle report, auditor's report? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the raffle report or the auditor's report? Very good. Please cast the yes for all members present. Next are the appointments. Per county board rules, board chairman appointments shall lay over until the second board meeting after they are first introduced. And I don't have a copy of the names in my packet. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yes. First is the Harlem Roscoe Fire Protection District. The annual compensation is not to exceed $1,500 per year, plus 50% of ambulance service. And that is for Mr. Glenn Trommels. That is a new appointment. to fill the remainder of a 3-year term. Mr. Elbach, his resignation will be effective April 30th, 2025, and expires May of 2027. The next is Barton Munger. That is a reappointment to serve a 3-year term expiring in May of 2028. Next are the North Park Public Water District. The annual compensation is not to exceed $1,200 per year. And Mr. Don Shovelin would be a new appointment to serve a 5-year term for Mr. James Hall, that is retiring, expiring in April 23rd of 2025, expiring May of 2030. The next is the Veterans Assistance Commission. The annual compensation is none. I'm placing up our very own Mr. Keith McDonald. That is a new appointment. So those are the appointments read in. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a conversation with Chief Bergeron from Harlem Roscoe. One of his appointments is replacing somebody who's leaving their board. And if it's okay with the rest of the board, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for the Harlem Roscoe appointments.
For the Harlem Roscoe appointments, there's a motion
that
to
motion.
suspend, and we have a second by Mr. Penny. Is there any opposition to the suspension of rules this evening? Hearing none. Okay, rules are suspended.
I'd like a motion to approve both.
We have a motion to approve, and Mr. Penny seconds that motion. Is there any discussion on these two appointments? Hearing none. Is there anybody opposed to these two appointments? Very good. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. They are appointed. All right, we'll move on to, sorry about that, reports of committees. We got the Finance Committee, Mr. Butita.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, we have a resolution authorizing the Winnebago County Board Chairman to execute a contract for transportation services by and between the County of Winnebago and the Reagan Mass Transit District, and I so move.
Motion to approve by Mr. Butita. Is there a second on the floor? Mr. Ray Thompson seconds that motion. Any discussion, Mr. Butita?
This is a resolution setting up the rural transit program. It's been in the works for quite a while and finally getting it executed.
Very good. Any board member discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast the yes for all members present. Mr. Butita.
Okay, the next resolution authorizes the Winnebago County Board Chairman to execute a memorandum of understanding for rural Winnebago County public transportation program compliance oversight monitor PCOM, and by the Winnebago, by the County of Winnebago and the Reagan Mass Transit District, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Butita, second by Ms. Goro. Is there any discussion, Mr. Butita?
This is resolution just stipulates who the PCOM or the person in charge of the grants for the funds.
Any board member discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the resolution? Very good. Please cast yes for all members present. I would like to say just one thing on that, on those two resolutions. I'm going to thank Ms. Goro. When I first got elected in 2020, you were one of my first calls to say that we needed rural transit. And I didn't even know what you were talking about. And it took a while, but we got her done. And I also want to thank Ms. Elgay for all your work on that, and Mr. Dornbush for all your work. So appreciate, this is a big deal for Winnebago County. I think we're the only 6 in the entire state that does not have rural transit, but now we do. So congratulations. Mr. Butita.
Just as a notice to anybody that might be listening, probably the implementation of this program won't happen until after July 1st.
Very good. All right, Mr. Butita.
Okay, next we have an ordinance just to be read in, first reading, ordinance for approval of budget amendment for various health department grant awards. And then we have 2 more resolutions. The first one,
Is that ordinance laid over?
That's for layover, yes.
Okay. Ordinance is laid over.
First one is a resolution authorizing settlement of a claim against the County of Winnebago entitled Michael Delgado versus Winnebago County, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Butita. Is there a second? Mr. Salgado seconds that motion. Any discussion, Mr. Butita?
This is a workman's comp claim in the amount of $34,398.
Very good. Any board member discussion on this resolution? Very good. Are there any board members opposed to the resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Butita.
Okay, and next is a resolution authorizing settlement of a claim against the County of Winnebago entitled Michael Weber versus Winnebago County, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Butita. We got a second by Mr. Sweeney. Discussion, Mr. Butita?
This also is a workman comp claim in the amount of $25,621.
Very good. Any board member discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Butita.
That's all we have for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Butita. Next is the zoning committee, Mr. Webster.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Your zoning committee has a couple of items for us this evening. The first is ZO 524. This has been read into the record previously, and it was due to be voted on this evening, but the petitioner has asked for a layover on this to our next meeting, which would be on March 27th. And so we need a motion to suspend.
No, just to lay over. A motion to,
Yes,
Yeah,
a
just-
motion to,
so we got a
Lay over.
motion by Mr. Webster to lay over and a second by Ms. Gorel. Any board member discussion on the layover? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the layover? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. The item is laid over. Mr.
Thank you.
Webster.
okay, the next item that we have is a resolution supporting agriculture within the county of Winnebago. And this got approved at zoning committee, and I think you're all familiar with it. We are all in a group photo here a little bit ago, and I would move to approve.
So we have a motion to approve, and we have a second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion, Mr. Webster?
A little on my part. I think this is something important we do to acknowledge the importance of agriculture in our county, and even our logo. When you look at our logo there, what's on top? What do you see on top? It's a caricature of farm life, and that's how important things are to our economy. That's the biggest driver of our economy is agriculture. Almost everything that you do or see wherever anybody works, most jobs can be tied back to agriculture in one way or another. Grocery stores, trucks that bring the stuff there, the machinery that's built for the agriculture, all of this ties back in one way or another. And I think that John had told me once, I think that statewide, that winds up to be like 75% of money that passes through Winnebago County.
Sure.
State of Illinois as well. So anyways, thank you all for that, and on a personal level, being a Farm Bureau member myself, I appreciate it.
Very good. So is there any other board member discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Webster.
Thank you. The final we have is a map amendments Z0125, and this is to rezone a parcel that is in County Board District 7, which is, and this came from Zoning Board of Appeals with unanimous approval, and Zoning Committee as well. So this is in for the first reading.
So this is to be laid over. Yes, Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to suspend the rules on this item. Vote on it tonight.
We have a motion to suspend and a second by Ms. Hainzer. What do we? Valdez. Thank you. Do we have, no, there's no discussion on, correct. Anybody opposed to the suspension of rules? Very good. The rules are suspended. Mr. Arena.
I move for the approval, this item.
We have a motion to approve and a second by Ms. Valadez. Is there any discussion? Yes, Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this property is located in my district. I've spoken with the petitioners. They had an issue with purchase the property with the understanding that it was zoned one way, it's zoned a different way. That discrepancy creates a problem for them if their house was damaged by fire, and in terms of being able to rebuild, and that's why they feel an urgency to get it corrected. They did have an incident recently where in installing a solar panel, there was like a fire, and so they're a little bit anxious, and they would be very grateful if we would approve it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this resolution from board members? No? Are there any board members opposed to the approval of this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Webster.
Thank you. Finally, the next Zoning Board of Appeals meeting is Wednesday, March 12th, and the next, following that, the next Zoning Committee meeting is Wednesday, March 26th, and I think we'll have some interesting items then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Next, we got Mr. Sweeney. Any report this evening?
We have no committee report tonight, Mr. Chairman, but we will have an Economic Development Committee meeting this upcoming Monday at 5:30 on the third floor.
Very good, thank you. Next, Operation Administrative Committee, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two items this evening. The first is a resolution awarding a contract for fiber optic connectivity and internet bandwidth, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. McDonald, second by Mr. Huffman. Is there any discussion, Mr. McDonald?
Not for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any board member discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our final item is a resolution to approve intergovernmental agreement for information technology services between the County of Winnebago and the City of Loves Park, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. McDonald, second by Mr. Michael Thompson. Is there any discussion, Mr. McDonald?
I did ask the question in committee to make sure, yes, we are recovering our costs for these services.
Very good. Any further board member discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Mr. Tassoni, any report this evening? Thank you, Mr. Tassoni. Next is Mr. Lindmark for Public Safety and Judiciary Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 5 resolutions tonight. The first one is a resolution authorizing the chairman of the county board to execute an accreditation contract with the American Correctional Association, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Lindmark, second by Mr. McCarthy. Mr. Penny, is there any discussion, Mr. Lindmark?
No other than to let everyone know this is funded by the commissary account.
Very good. Any further board member discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Lindmark.
Next, we have a resolution authorizing the chairman of the county board to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Sapulite Fire Department for fire and EMS dispatch services, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Lindmark, second by Mr. McDonald. Mr. Penny, any discussion, Mr. Lindmark?
Not from me.
Any board member discussion, Mr. Arena, and then I'll come to this way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just have a question in the language related to rates. It says, at the end of that paragraph, it says, during the terms of this contract, the cost per dispatch call will not increase by amount greater than 6%. The way it's written, terms makes it sound like it's all-inclusive for as long as the contract is in force, that the 6% is a cap, as opposed to 6% per year. And I just might not be understanding the legal language, but is it 6% for a year? Because that the word terms is plural. Or is it intended to be 6%?
Mr. Rick?
Mr. Reno, so it's intended to be the potential to raise up to 6% per year.
Right.
The potential exists annually.
Right, so that is what Chief Saganek said to me. But when I read it, I just wanted to make sure the language reflects the intent.
You want clarification from the
Should it be
state's attorney?
terms or term?
Right.
Thank you, Chairman. We can take out the plural, the S.
But is it
But-
necessary? Am I just,
It's not,
okay, then,
because the term is for 1 year, and then it's successive years after that for 1 year.
okay.
so-
I just wanted clarification. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We got Ms. Valdez.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just have a couple questions because I know that this has been discussed previously, and since I'm newer, I just wanted to get some background. I did see within the documents that we have a figure of $15 per call. I was just wondering how that figure was arrived at. Was it based on the actual expenses per call?
Mr. Saganik.
So it was not based on expense per call. It was based on their current dispatcher, the Rockcom Mercy Health, charges $15 a call. So in order to entice the fire departments to come over to the county, we had to match their price. If we were offering or asking for a higher price, we wouldn't be able to get the fire departments to come over.
Okay, I have a follow-up question
Sure.
to that. Since they weren't based on actual expenses, is there an approximation or a forecast as to how much the intended shortfall is for Winnebago County?
So I would suggest that the shortfall would be 5 employees, 5 TCs at the 911 center that are being subsidized by the county board.
Okay.
Very good. Ms. Fellers, you had your hand up?
I guess I have two questions. That actually prompted another question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for Mr. Saganik. What is the benefit to the county to enticing them to come over to be customers at a loss to the county?
The reason that the sheriff has wanted to bring the fire departments from Rockcom to our center is that it will reduce the time that it takes for fire to respond when fire or emergency medical when people are in crisis. And the other benefit is that it will create a network that provides better safety for the firefighters.
Okay, so it's my understanding that the city of South Beloit recently signed an agreement with the city of Beloit, which, as all of us know, is actually in Wisconsin and not part of Winnebago County. Do we know that our technology is compatible with the city of Beloit? Will we be dispatching to Wisconsin now? How are we going to manage that?
So just to clarify, they're not with the city of Beloit, they're with the town of Beloit. They're 2 separate entities.
Is that also in Wisconsin?
It's also in Wisconsin, correct. So South Beloit entered into agreement with the town of Beloit to provide fire services. Currently, the radio network that will be used, South Beloit also entered into agreement with Rockton Fire in order to allow us to transmit to South Beloit Fire over the Rockton radio network.
Okay, so someone would call 911, just for clarification. Someone would call 911 who lives in South Beloit, and then that call would be sent to Rockton, and then Rockton would then contact the town of Beloit?
I guess let me clarify. So you call 911, the 911 call comes into the county center. The agreement that South Beloit has with the town of Beloit brings firefighters into the South Beloit fire station to be dispatched from there. So if you call 911 in South Beloit, the call comes into our 911 center. We will dispatch the South Beloit fire from South Beloit, not from Wisconsin, and then the radio network being used is the Rockton radio network. Does that clarify?
It does, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to something related to that, I actually contacted Mr. Schultz today and asked him for a list of unfunded federal agreements that we have currently with the federal government, and that amount is more than $20 million. And that $20 million covers critical services such as capital improvement, anti-crime initiatives, things that our constituents are really interested in us taking care of. And I feel that it's irresponsible of the board to enter into an agreement where we could potentially be incurring additional costs with no idea of how much those costs are at a time that we might be needing to fill gaps for things like roads, bridges, crime prevention, school lunches, vaccines. And these are all from departments that have been targeted by executive orders from the federal government. And so I am personally pulling money, in my household, you know, because I don't know what the future is going to bring. I think we should take care of our money at the county in the same way that we shouldn't enter into any kind of unfunded contracts or questionable contracts, that we should know exactly where our money is going, and we should be doing that strategically. So it's not really a question, it's a statement. But I just don't think that we should be spending money that we don't have, especially when with no idea of how much money that's going to be. It's irresponsible to the taxpayers, and it doesn't focus our budget on places that our taxpayers have been quite clear that they want us to spend our money on.
Thank you, Ms. Fellers. Board member discussion, Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share Ms. Feller's concern in general about finances. Always, you guys always hear me talk about being careful with the budget, and I questioned Chief Saganek before the meeting about costs associated with this so that we could be aware of it and plan for the future. But the biggest point here is that we're going to provide faster service to the citizens of Winnebago County through this system than they were receiving before. So in cases of emergency, you know, time matters. And so I support this fully, even though I am concerned about money, because I think it's most important that the people in our communities get the best possible service in an emergency they can. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member discussion, Ms. Fellers and then Ms. Valdez.
To build on what Mr. Arena had just said about, you know, being aware and preparing for things in the future, I do think that this is something that we can remedy with the current contract. I'm not sure what the process is. If you could please help me, Ms. Vaughn. I would like to propose that we add language to the contract requiring a full audit at the 6-month period, at which we would then know what we're spending or what we need, so that when we're renegotiating at the end of the 1-year term, that we would know exactly what those costs are. I also think that we should strike item 8A, a portion of it which says this agreement shall automatically renew for successive 1-year terms unless either party notifies the other in writing at least 30 days prior to the end. If we were to strike that, it would allow us to negotiate this contract in good faith with real numbers 6 months from now. And that would make me comfortable voting yes on this.
So is that a friendly amendment to the contract, is what you're saying?
Yes, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the contract.
Do we need 2 separate amendments, or she mentioned 2 things? Is there a second for that? Ms. Valdez seconds that motion. Is there any board member discussion? Mr. Arena.
So I want to be clear on the nature of the amendment. The first part of it is about an audit, right? But I guess we'd be auditing the county, right? Because right, so.
Correct. My intention would be that we would be auditing the expenses for this specific program.
Okay, and that's not a terrible idea, but I'm just wondering, is that relevant to, like, the South Beloit have to agree to us auditing our internal costs? I mean, but can we just do that on our own? I mean, it all goes through our finance department. I think we have access to that information without putting it in the contract.
I'm comfortable with that process, if it doesn't have to be in the contract, but I'm only comfortable with that if we strike that portion of item 8A.
Oh, and to follow up, I just want to point out to you that it renews for 1 year, but it's got a 30-day termination clause. So, you know, we can end it at any time with 30 days notice. So what do we gain by not having it self-renew? Like, what would happen then?
We would have urgency and accountability.
What?
We would have urgency and accountability.
Okay, that it would have to come before us again?
It would have to come before us again. It would force the issue to come in front of the board. It's not something that we could forget about or ignore. We operate with expired contracts in this county all the time. That's business as usual. And so I don't believe that there would be any kind of interruption in service if it were to lapse, but it would give us a hard deadline. And then I could go back to my constituents and be like, we did this so that people are safer, but We understand that the money might not be right, and so we have agreed to go back and make sure that the money is right, and at the end of a one-year term, we will renegotiate this contract.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to remind or point out that a lot of this started many, many years ago with Chief Carner. He worked very diligently and got all the police departments on the same page. And because all of them were willing at a flip of a switch to be on this program, they knew exactly what their costs were going to be. And that's so far been wildly successful to have all the agencies be dispatched. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, Chief Saganek, is when we began with the fire departments then. This will only be solvent and whole once all the other fire departments have signed up. So there's still several that haven't. So if we make an evaluation right after South Beloit, and presumably we pass the Winnebago this evening as well, that's still not all the fire departments of Winnebago County. One of the huge ones that's going to change things a lot is once we get like Harlem-Roscoe convinced to come to the county. They're, I think, over 4,000 calls a year. South Beloit, I'm not positive. I'd be surprised if they did 1,200 calls a year. So once all the entities, all the fire protection districts and city fires, once they're on board. So I agree, we could look at a cost study, but we need to look at all the departments that are coming here, and that's the point where we should be solving.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
So I want to be clear that I'm not against this. I'm not against this at all. I understand the economy of scale. I believe that there's a great efficiency in all of the 911 services being provided for the entire county under one unit of government, that, you know, being us and having intergovernmental agreements with other cities. However, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, you know. And we don't know for sure that Harlem's coming in, and we don't know for sure that the other, you know, fire departments are coming in. And so without that kind of guarantee, I am reluctant to enter into contracts for subsidies that we are not prepared to pay, especially at a time when we're facing potential funding cuts that we have not planned for.
Mr. Penny.
Yeah, just a couple things. So just to be clear, Mr. Saganek, we're talking about utilizing current staff we have, correct? We're not looking for the need to hire additional staff?
So that's correct. However, I just want to be clear, we added 5 additional positions to the fiscal year. So those were additional positions on top of what was already there. So those positions, you know, are in the budget this year. At this point, we don't anticipate that we will need any additional telecommunicator positions in order to adequately, or I should say, or dispatch extremely well for all the fire departments. So at this point, you know, as I said earlier, the anticipated cost of this is 5 telecommunicator positions, which are not being covered by the costs that we're recouping from the fire departments now.
And if I remember correctly from that budget discussion at that time, you're understaffed as it is. Have you been able to fulfill 5 people?
So we've been very fortunate with our recruiting in the 911 center, and we're currently staffed at 26 positions. So we have 3 openings.
And then last comment / question, expected revenue off of this new venture, I'm estimating 15 to 20 grand a year. You know what that figure is?
It's $15 times the number of calls. I don't have the actual numbers right in front of me.
That's kind of what I was going off of. So
Yes.
it's not we're not talking about a massive influx of calls or a massive influx of expenses or receipts, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Ms. Valdez, and then Mr. Arena.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. I did just want to ask a clarifying question, because if the only costs associated with this are the 5 personnel positions, then I guess I'm confused about Section 2, ownership and responsibility for equipment, where it states that we're responsible for replacing and providing a litany of equipment at our expense. Is that something that's currently budgeted, and wouldn't that be an additional expense on top of the 5 FTEs?
So again, I don't have the agreement right in front of me, but any costs associated for the county for equipment are covered by the ETSB board. The fire departments are responsible to cover their own equipment. The county's not paying for equipment with any of the fire departments. So Any equipment related to this dispatching for the fire departments is covered by the ETSB board.
Yeah, would that then be necessary to be within the agreement if that's not something that the county is actually providing?
Ms. Vaughn?
Thank you, Chairman. The current language does state that the county shall be responsible for providing through the use of funds available through the Emergency Telephone System Board. So
Okay.
it's already in there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you. Mr. Arena?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Ms. Feller's idea of compelling an audit by limiting preventing it from self-renewing isn't terrible, but my concern is that this was a negotiated contract with the other municipality, and, you know, if we start changing the terms here, you know, that might cause concern to them, because I assume if we do it in one, we're going to do it the other. And it does have the 30-day out. Are we able to pass a separate resolution from this that compels us to perform the function that Ms. Fellers has suggested we do without changing the contract? Like if we came back, you know, 2 weeks at our next meeting with some trailer type of legislation that mandates that audit occur, would that be functional remedy to the problem?
Ms. Vaughn?
Thank you, Chairman. Of course, if the board wanted to pass a separate resolution that's applicable to all the agreements that have come through last year and then this year, then of course you can do that at the next meeting.
But just like a cost analysis of the whole thing so we know where we're at and then we can plan accordingly moving forward?
Yes.
I would support that as opposed to changing the contract.
Very good. Mr. Penny?
I'd like to call the question.
Very good. Are there any board members opposed to the friendly amendment to the agreement? We have a friendly amendment on the floor. Yeah, so yeah. Is he calling for the amendment debate, or are we concluded on the amendment debate? So, yes, Ms. Fellers was seconded by Ms. Valadez for a friendly amendment. Would you like to state what you'd like to have it in?
The friendly amendment would have, on section 8A, removed, this agreement shall automatically renew for successive one-year terms unless either party notifies the other in writing at least 30 days prior to the end of the initial term or any renewal term that is intent not to renew. Is it too late for me to retract my motion now that it's been seconded?
No.
No, okay. I would like to withdraw my motion for the amendment.
Ms. Valadez, the second withdrawn? Okay, friendly amendment has been withdrawn. So we can move back to the original motion to approve this resolution as it's written. And we already had a motion and a second. Any final discussion on that? Mr. Salgado.
Yeah, just a real quick question for Mr. Saganek. Mr. Saganek, do you know how many individuals or entities are still with Romcom from your perspective?
Sure. There's 3 remaining fire agencies with Rockcom, and they are Durand, Pecatonic, and Sherlin.
Very good. Any further questions on approving the resolution? We have a motion on the floor to approve this resolution as it's written. Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Lindmark.
All right, we'll try this again. Resolution authorizing the chairman of the county board to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Winnebago Sioux Fire Protection District for fire and EMS dispatch services, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Lindmark, second by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion, Mr. Lindmark?
None from me.
Any board member discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Lindmark.
The next resolution is to award annual maintenance agreement for X-ray scanners, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Lindmark. We have a second by Mr. Webster. Any discussion, Mr. Lindmark?
Not for me, sir.
Board member discussion on the X-ray scanners? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the X-ray scanners maintenance agreement? Hearing none, please cast the yes for all members present. Mr. Lindmark.
Final resolution is awarding a veterinarian services agreement between Winnebago County Animal Services and Shelter Vet on the Go, PLLC, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Lindmark, second by Mr. McCarthy. Is there any discussion, Mr. Lindmark?
No.
Any
None for
board
me.
member discussion on this number 6 resolution? Very good. Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Lindmark.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindmark. Next is Legislative and Lobbying Committee, Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado. Moving on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business before the board this evening? All right, hearing none. New business. Any new business? Ms. Valdez.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to follow up. I wasn't actually certain if it would be in new business or unfinished business, but back on the meeting on 123, Mr. McDonald had asked for an update from the Mental Health Board to the county board. I was just wondering if that had been scheduled yet.
We're working on that schedule.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Any other new yes, Ms. Fellers.
Would it be appropriate for me to bring up the ordinance requiring the 6-month? Is that when I bring it up now? The resolution? Then my intent to write the resolution for the 6-month audit? Okay, I didn't know if I'm supposed to bring that up. Pardon?
We just can't vote on it, correct?
Great.
You can refer it to a committee.
I'd like to refer it to, would that go to finance or public safety? Okay, I'd like to refer it to public safety then.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fellers. Any other new business in front of the county board? All right, hearing none. Announcements and communications. Clerk Gummel.
Thank you. The items we've received as communications are in file at the clerk's office. Also, I am a long-standing member of the Farm Bureau.
Would you like to hold the plaque? All right. Any other announcements or communications? Anybody need to say anything? Mr. Butita.
Thank you. I'd just like to congratulate Mr. Salgado on his election victory. We'll regrettably missing him in the future.
So congratulations. We also have another announcement. Laffy, you got lucky the last time. I believe Ms. Fellers has announcements that she's recently engaged.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Very good. Congratulations. All right, Mr. Webster. Motion by Mr. Webster, second by Mr. Thompson in the background over there. Anybody opposed to